Brady's seventh Super Bowl win was the exclamation point on an incredible first season away from New England. During an appearance on Inside the NFL on Showtime, Bruce Arians said he believes Brady made the move to Tampa because he wanted to prove he could win without Belichick.
His competitive spirit is so strong that he wanted to do it. Yeah. He wanted to show people. I've never said anything bad about Bill Belichick. I know everybody tries to say I do because his records speak for itself. He is probably the greatest one ever. But I think he wanted to try a different way.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong. By the way, it worked, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay being part of a system. We see this all the time in corporate America, where people are part of a corporation, they're an executive, they do well, and at some point they get kind of turned off by the pressure from the corporation. They go out and they form their own business. And Brady's like, all right, I kind of want to be more of a free spirit. I want to kind of do things. I want to have a say in personnel. And by the way, as somebody pointed out yesterday on our show, Leonard Fournette scored in the Super Bowl, Antonio Brown scored in the Super Bowl, and Gronk scored in the Super Bowl. Those were all three Brady guys. So, he wanted all those guys, and they all scored. So maybe Tom's got a little sense of personnel that works too.
Well, we had these conversations about who was more responsible for the New England dynasty for years before Brady even left. Was it Bill? Was it Brady? What percentage do you give Bill because he handles the roster? What percentage do you give Brady because he's on the field? I still don't know that we'll ever really have the answer of who was more responsible, but we know that Brady was the one who got it done at the end of the day because he's validated in what he did in Tampa.
Yeah.
He is the engine that makes all of that go. Belichick may have put together the structure and established the culture and set up the way that all of it was going to work, but Brady was the engine that made it go. And I don't know whether credit really matters when it comes to the New England dynasty, because I don't think we're ever going to see anything like that again in the history of the NFL. It was just too much and too perfect, and too many things had to go the way that it did for it to end up that way.
Yeah.
But I get excited because I'm like, man, I can't wait until the documentaries come out and the books come out and we get all the behind the scenes juicy stuff, because it's so fun. Well, this Tampa Bay Super Bowl has just been amazing.
Yeah, Florida's had a history of this. The Heat, the Marlins, and now maybe the Buccaneers, where no state tax, weather is warm. A lot of these leagues are in the deep fall in the winter. It is easy to talk players to come down to a Florida team, say, come on down in the warm weather. We're winning. We're good. This puppy won't last forever. But for 2 or 3 years, you can be part of something special. It feels like Florida organizations are not always brilliantly run, but they're very attractive as you age as a professional athlete. Your bones get a little sore. The weather's good. The humidity's good. The state tax is nothing. Your family's got a ton to do when you're at practice. So it feels like the Bucs. I saw a story yesterday. Tom's out there saying, come on down and join us. I can see where guys are totally looking for one-offs and one-year deals in Tampa. That's Joy Taylor with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for
Barber shave cream. I use it now that I have a full, rich beard like a Wolverine. Available at major retailers, Amazon, and CremoCompany.com, CREMO. Good to have you in today. A little energy today. I'm back on my B game. I'm feeling pretty strong. So here's another story I don't buy. It's nothing against the person reporting it. I just don't buy it. That Russell Wilson has his eye on the Cowboys, according to Mike Florio. He was on a Dallas station. He said that. Maybe he was, ingratiating himself to the host. I don't buy this at all. But I will say this. There's a lot of rumblings with Russell Wilson right now. And Russell Wilson never says anything. I take a week off, and he's suddenly Howard Stern. He's controversy at every turn. And Florio says, Russell, eye on Dallas. Now, I don't think it's crazy. Dallas is a kind of a star. Jerry Jones likes to create stars. I think Russell Wilson feels sometimes he's jammed up in the Pacific Northwest. But it is funny. The power of likability. It is really funny. So Mike Tomlin has not had a losing season in 14 years. That's pretty remarkable. He gets ripped all the time. Andy Reid dominated the NFC for 5 years. Dominated it. And was good for over 10. They fired him. Belichick dominates the entire league for 20 years. Brady leaves. He's 7-9, and there's critics everywhere. Pete Carroll, crickets. Because he's likable. He's chawing on that gum 100 miles an hour. He's available for interviews. I think Pete's a nice guy. He's a fun guy. He's got big energy. Got big energy, Pete. But does anybody ever go, and I like him, but he was fired twice in the NFL. He left USC and NCAA quicksand. They've never recovered. He was 14-18 before Russell Wilson got to Seattle. His coveted defense his last 4 years have ranked 11th, 16th, 26th, and 22nd. He now has incredible power in personnel. In fact, that's why the GM, John Snyder, almost left to take the Lions GM job. And their draft picks have been all over the map. That Jamal Adams trade, there's no safety in the NFL worth 2 first-round picks. Pete made that happen. The Rashad Penny first-round pick was a mess. It was a draft loaded with running backs. You could have gotten Rashad Penny in the second, third round. He's never played. There's a Doc Rivers quality here. And I like Doc and I like Pete. But Doc Rivers got fired. Doc Rivers has a presence. Like Pete, he had an early title. He'd been fired a few times, but there's a likability, there's a presence. But Doc Rivers ultimately paid the price last year because the Clippers underachieved. And you tell me, since they won the Super Bowl, doesn't it feel kind of like Seattle is making crap up as they go? Kind of? I mean, in 2018, they lead the NFL in rushing. Lead the NFL. 2019, they're like 19th. Just stop running the ball. Jamal Adams trade, offensive line always feels suboptimal. Even in Los Angeles, if you mention Pete, if you criticize him, people don't like it. There's just, Seattle feels like something is off. We ripped Tomlin. We ripped Belichick. We ripped Andy Reid. We criticize everybody. Has anybody ever said that franchise up in Seattle feels lopsided? Pete controls personnel. Pete controls the defense. Pete controls the offensive line. The offense looks prehistoric. Just a little pushback, a little. I'm not asking for dismissals and firings, but it is interesting. There is this Pacific Northwest shield around Pete, and the downside to having all that power, and outside of Belichick, nobody in the NFL has more power than Pete Carroll. Andy Reid does not have this much power. Brett Veach runs personnel. Sean Payton does not have this much say. Mickey Loomis and Jeff Ireland run personnel. Pete and Belichick run their franchises. By the way, neither has been great on draft day the last 4 or 5 years. Just saying. Joy with the news.
No.